She was just doing her job until a chance discovery in her boss's office changed everything. A secret, hidden for years, was finally exposed, shaking the entire office and turning her life upside down. What happens next will leave you speechless. Drop your city in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a new story. Maria had been working in the same corporate building for years, pushing her cleaning cart through the empty hallways long after everyone had gone home. She was invisible to the executives, a ghost in the night who wiped down their desks and took out their trash without a second glance. But tonight was different. As she dusted around the massive oak desk in the CEO's office, her rag caught on something, a tiny ridge underneath. Curious, she ran her fingers over it, pressing lightly. A faint click echoed in the silence. Maria froze. Had she just broken something? Her heart pounded as she hesitated, glancing around the empty office as if someone might be watching. Slowly, she crouched down, feeling along the edge of the desk, until she found a small, nearly invisible panel. With a deep breath, she pulled. The compartment slid open. Inside, there was a thick envelope, slightly worn at the edges, as if it had been handled many times. Maria hesitated, torn between her conscience and the burning curiosity twisting in her gut. She knew she should walk away, pretend she hadn't seen anything, but something about the way the envelope had been stashed away so carefully made her pulse race. Why hide something like this? Her fingers trembled as she pulled it out, flipping it over. There was no name, no markings, just a plain sealed envelope. Swallowing hard, she carefully peeled it open. What she found inside made her breath hitch in her throat. Stacks of $100 bills. Not just a few, but enough to change someone's life. And tucked between them was something even more shocking. A letter, scrawled in messy, hurried handwriting. She barely registered the words at first, her mind racing with questions. But then as she read, her hands began to shake. This wasn't just money, this was a secret big enough to shake the entire company to its core. Maria's hands tightened around the letter as she scanned the words, her pulse hammering in her ears. The handwriting was rushed, almost desperate. It wasn't a simple note, it was a confession of something so big, so shocking, that her knees went weak. She lowered herself onto the plush office chair, barely aware of the way it squeaked under her weight. The letter detailed payments, bribes, secret transactions, names of people who shouldn't have been involved in company affairs, and at the bottom, a signature, her boss's. Maria's breath came in short gasps. This wasn't just hidden money, this was something criminal, something dangerous. Her eyes darted to the stacks of cash again, the edges crisp, untouched. This was hush money. Someone had been paid off, or maybe someone was supposed to be. She wasn't supposed to find this. No one was. Cold shiver ran down her spine. Should she put it back? Walk away and pretend she never saw it? But she couldn't, not now, not with the names burned into her mind. Some of them she recognized, executives, powerful figures in the company. And one name that stood out. Someone she never would have expected. She swallowed hard, her throat dry. She needed to think, needed time, but the office walls suddenly felt like they were closing in on her. What if there were cameras? What if someone had seen her? She shot up from the chair, shoving the letter back into the envelope with shaking hands. Footsteps. Maria froze. They were faint, coming from down the hall, but growing closer. She barely had time to shove the envelope back into the compartment and slide it shut before the office door handle rattled. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she grabbed the nearest rag and started wiping the desk furiously, pretending to be mid-cleaning. The door creaked open. A man stepped in. Not her boss, not security, someone else. Someone who shouldn't have been there at this hour. Maria kept her head down, scrubbing at a perfectly clean spot on the desk as if her life depended on it. Her breath was shallow, heart thundering so loud she swore the man could hear it. She didn't dare look up. Maybe if she stayed invisible, like always, he'd ignore her and leave. The man stepped further inside, his shoes barely making a sound against the polished floor. There was something off about him. He wasn't dressed like security, and he sure wasn't an executive. His clothes were too casual, his movements too careful, like he wasn't supposed to be here either. Didn't think anyone else would be working this late, he said, his voice low, unreadable. Maria forced a small laugh, gripping the rag so hard her fingers ached. Yeah, well, messes don't clean themselves. He didn't respond right away. She could feel his eyes on her, studying. She needed to act normal, needed to get out of there before he noticed how stiff she was, how her hands were shaking. She moved to grab her cart, ready to push it toward the door, but his next words stopped her cold. You find anything interesting tonight? Her fingers curled around the cart handle. There was no reason for him to ask that. No reason unless... Her stomach twisted. He knew. Maria forced herself to keep her step steady as she moved, but the second she reached for the door, he shifted, blocking her path. Not aggressively, not yet, but enough to make it clear she wasn't leaving until he decided she could. Her mouth went dry. "I just clean," she said, her voice even. "That's all." He nodded slowly, as if considering something. "Right, and I'm just here to check on things." A lie. They both knew it. Maria's eyes darted to the desk, to the hidden compartment she had just sealed shut. If he was here for that, if he was looking for the envelope, a new wave of panic surged through her. If he didn't find it, would he assume she had it? She needed to get out. Now. Maria swallowed hard, gripping her cart tighter. "Well, if you're checking, I'll get out of your way." She tried to step around him, but he shifted again, this time just a little slower, more deliberate. "You sure?" he asked. "You seem nervous." Her heart slammed against her ribs. If she played this wrong, she wouldn't just be in trouble, she'd be in real danger. Maria forced a smile, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. "Why would I be nervous?" she said, lightly, hoping her voice didn't betray her. "Just tired. Long shift, you know." The man tilted his head slightly, watching her too closely, like he was waiting for her to slip up. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Then, as if deciding something, he exhaled sharply through his nose and took a slow step back. "Yeah," he said. "Long night for everyone." Maria nodded quickly, taking the opening and pushing her cart forward. She didn't look back. Couldn't. Her legs felt stiff, her whole body wired with tension, but she kept moving, steady and normal, just like any other night. The second she turned the corner and was out of sight, her breath hitched. Her hands were shaking so bad she had to grip the cart tighter just to keep herself upright. He knew. He knew someone had been in that compartment. Maybe he wasn't sure if it was her. Maybe he was just guessing. But he was there for a reason. She needed to go home, think, figure out what the hell to do. Maria rushed through the empty hallways, barely noticing the hum of the vending machines or the faint buzz of the lights overhead. When she reached the janitor's closet, she shoved her cart inside, grabbed her coat, and bolted for the exit. The night air hit her like a slap, cold and sharp, but she didn't stop moving until she was blocks away from the building. Her mind raced. What now? She couldn't ignore this, but she had no idea who to trust. The letter had names, big ones. If this went public, people would lose their jobs, their reputations, maybe more. She pulled her phone from her pocket, staring at the screen with shaking fingers. One call, one text, that's all it would take to blow this wide open. But was she ready for that? As she stood on the dark sidewalk, heart still hammering, she realized something. She wasn't just some janitor anymore. She was holding a secret powerful enough to bring everything crashing down. Maria took a deep breath, forcing her hands to stop shaking as she locked her phone screen and shoved it back into her pocket. She couldn't rush this. One wrong move and she could end up in a situation way worse than just losing her job. She needed help. But from who? The police? What if they were in on it? Some of the names in that letter weren't just company executives. They had connections. If this ran deeper than just money under the table, she could be walking straight into a trap. A car passed by, its headlights briefly illuminating her in the darkness. She shrank back, heart leaping into her throat. Was someone following her? She glanced over her shoulder, scanning the quiet street, but there was no one. Just the usual late-night city noises. Still, she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. She needed to get somewhere safe, somewhere she could think without feeling like she was being watched. Her tiny apartment was only a few blocks away. It wasn't much, just a cramped space with old furniture and flickering lights. But it was hers. As soon as she stepped inside and locked the door behind her, she exhaled, pressing her forehead against the cool wood. What was she supposed to do now? She had never been in a situation like this. She wasn't some investigator or journalist. She was just a janitor, a nobody. But that's exactly why they wouldn't see her coming. She paced the room, running through her options. She couldn't ignore this. That money, that letter, someone had been paid off and someone else was trying to cover their tracks. If she stayed quiet, she'd be just as guilty. Her fingers twitched toward her phone again, hesitating. She had one contact she could call, someone who used to work in the company but left after things got weird. A friend, but not a close one. Would they even believe her? Before she could second-guess herself, she dialed. The phone rang twice before a groggy voice answered. "Maria? Do you have any idea what time it is?" She gripped the phone tighter. "I need to talk to you, it's important." There was a pause, then a sigh. How important? She swallowed hard. The kind that could ruin careers, maybe even lives. Silence. Then, "Where are you?" She hesitated, glancing at her locked door. "My place." "I'm on my way." Maria hung up, her heart pounding. This was it, no turning back now. Maria was just an ordinary janitor, until one night she found something hidden in her boss's office that could bring down powerful people. A secret compartment, a letter filled with names and stacks of cash meant to silence someone, but now she knows too much. And someone else knows she found it. As danger closes in, Maria must decide, stay silent and stay safe, or expose the truth and risk everything. What would you do? Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories.